It's almost as American as baseball, hot dogs, and apple pie. So why was milk suffering a steady decline in consumption? More important, what could be done to reverse milk's freefall? To answer these questions, 40 California milk processors formed the California Milk Processor Board in 1993. According to Executive Director Jeff Manning, a processor or commodity board is usually created out of desperation.
Everybody pretends it's not happening. They kind of want to look the other way and deny it. And then at some point in time, the industry gets together and says, gosh, you know, this brand stuff isn't working at all. We're all losing. The pie's getting smaller. We better do something. And then they all sit down at the table and say, let's form a commodity board. So yes, we were formed because the per capita consumption of milk in California has been going down for 20 or 30 years.
Jeff knew he faced a significant challenge.
Because you had this incredible influx of, obviously, the sodas, but then the new age beverages, the Snapples and the isotonics, the Gatorades, and then all of this bottled water stuff, you know, coming in, and lots of things happening that didn't exist 15 years ago. So the decline was very, very serious.
Previously a senior vice president with Ketchum Advertising, Manning faced some obstacles unique to commodities like milk, not the least of which was a relatively paltry marketing budget of $23 million.
The non-alcoholic beverage category spends a couple $2 billion a year promoting its products. And it is the most sophisticated, I mean, Coke, Pepsi, the most sophisticated marketers in the world.
Food commodity marketing traditionally focuses on the issue of health, and past milk promotional campaigns had been no exception.
Milk is good for you. Now, it was expressed different ways in different places, but the bottom line was milk is good for you. Well, the problem remains, that 92 or 3% of the people already believed milk was good for you. So it was like, good, I'm going to come and tell you now that milk is good for you. You believe it already. You have no issues with it whatsoever. And I'm going to ask you to drink more milk. It's like, no, I don't think that's going to happen.
To help him turn things around, Jeff Manning enlisted the services of the San Francisco agency of Goodby, Silverstein and Partners.
Many advertisers, clients, say they want their advertising agencies to be marketing partners, promotional partners, and think of merchandise ideas and in-store ideas and stuff. And I don't feel that way. I feel that's a client's job. Now, I take ideas from anybody, but the agency's job is first and foremost produce brilliant advertising. And if they do that, then I'm thrilled.
Goodby Silverstein principal Jeffrey Goodby explains the approach his agency took.
We did things like putting a video camera inside a refrigerator that recorded people coming in to get milk with their morning cereal, coming in to get milk to put in their coffee in the morning here. And we took all the milk out of the refrigerator, and so you'd see the door open and their faces would fall, and they'd use some four-letter word and leave the scene in a huff. And we did research like that. We did a lot of focus groups, and so my role was to try to turn all of that research and the findings and what we decided the groups are saying into creative work, ultimately.
One thing they quickly learned is that milk is closely associated with certain foods.
Very few times do you hear someone say, whoa, I really feel like a glass of milk. What they say is, God, I could use a bowl of cereal. I need my Honey Nut Cheerios. Or, Oreos. I want my Oreos. Okay? Or it's 11 o'clock at night and they say, God, you know, Mom, could you make those refrigerated cookie dough things from Pillsbury? So when that happens, people then start entering a world where milk wins. Milk wins because nothing tastes as good with those cookies or that cereal than milk does. That was half a strategy. That wasn't wrong, but it was half a strategy. What the agency did, Goodby Silverstein did, was say, well, yeah, but there's nothing very exciting about that. That's kind of a food and milk yum-yum thought.
We knew we were going to do something with the idea that people notice milk when they run out of it, and that effect got turned up if you had a cookie or some cereal to eat. We knew we were going to do something with that. But I don't think that that was particularly new. I mean, I think focusing on deprivation in absence of everything else was really a big, interesting development.
We found out that milk only became crucial to people when they ran out. Very interesting observation. So it evolved from a food and milk yum-yum strategy to what we affectionately call milk deprivation.
One day, and this was totally serendipity, one day we were getting ready to do this presentation, and Carol Winkler, who was the planner on the account, asked me what she should write on this particular foam core board that was going to lead into this part of the presentation. And I said, I don't know, just put something like "got milk" on it, question mark, okay? And she said, well, how about "got enough milk"? And I said, no, just put "got milk" and just leave it like that. And so she wrote it on this board, and I got into the presentation, and I was looking at this board and just thinking to myself, it doesn't have to be too much more complicated than that.
That was the birthplace, if you would, of Got Milk. That is, Got Milk only came out of us saying to people, do you have enough milk? Which was kind of a long, wordy, boring way of saying it. So we said, hey, got milk? Meaning, do you have enough? Or you better go out and buy some more. And that was the birthplace of Got Milk, was milk deprivation.
The deprivation strategy translated into an advertising campaign that paired milk with its perfect complements, including cereal, chocolate chip cookies, and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. The creative twist, however, was to deprive the main character of milk.
We didn't try to tell people anything about milk that wasn't true. Milk deprivation has always been, and always will be, a big pain. And it's funny. I mean, it's funny what happens when you run out of milk. That's the power of this, and great execution. The product's fine. The product is a wonderful product. It's highly regulated. It's good for you. That's not the magic of this. The magic of this is that we've found a place that virtually everybody from a 3-year-old to a 93-year-old can laugh and say, ugh, I've been there. I've done that. I know, ugh, it's horrible. That's the power of Got Milk. It's true. Running out of milk is a pain.
Goodby Silverstein partner John Steele, who supervised much of the research, explains it this way.
I think Got Milk tapped into something in consumer minds and hearts very, very quickly, because it found a way of talking about their relationship to milk that none of them had, that was latent for everybody, but nobody had ever articulated before. You know, it stated the obvious in a very humorous and compelling way, and people immediately bonded with it. And in the end, I think that's what advertising does. It creates relationships between brands and consumers.
The original focus of the campaign was television.
We conceived of a campaign of mini stories. If you can imagine little teeny novels, little teeny stories, short stories, that were 30 to 60 seconds long. And in each one of those stories, a wholly independent character, they're not linked to each other, they weren't linked to each other anyway, finds himself having his food, preparing his food, getting his food somehow, and then running out of milk and being tormented, or tortured, whichever.
The first spot established the tone for the entire campaign.
You have this scholarly young man who's living in this weird apartment, and he's got every piece of memorabilia in the world about Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr, who I didn't know who Aaron Burr was, I'm sorry to say, and knew everything, and ends up getting a phone call from a radio station asking the question of his life for $10,000, who shot Alexander Hamilton? And of course he knows, but because he just took this enormous bite of peanut butter and doesn't have any milk, his answer is Aaron Burr. And of course, he doesn't get his $10,000.
The Aaron Burr spot set a high standard for both the agency and for consumers.
I think that what we try to do here is a couple of very simple things, really. One, to treat people at their best, not to use the lowest common denominator when we talk to them, but to try to use the highest one and kind of approach people in a way that they like to be approached. So You know, we expect people to give us a lot of attention. We expect them to understand, maybe not know who Aaron Burr is right away, but to follow the commercial enough to kind of get the mechanism and understand the humor. And hopefully the next time that piece of information will be in their heads and they won't have to even think about it again.
We've always believed that advertising works best when it aims at the highest common denominator of taste and intelligence. You know, most advertising we see, unfortunately, is based on the lowest common denominator. And that's much easier to do. It takes a long time often to figure out what the highest common denominator is, but if you find it, people will rise to its level.
While the primary emphasis is on TV, Got Milk is a thoroughly integrated campaign.
I think that the relative spend and the degree to which people talk about those different media would lead me to suppose that television actually had the lion's share in the effect of the campaign. But it's also possible in the end that the reason people bought more milk wasn't because of the television, but it was because of the little checkout dividers that say Got Milk that reminded them at the last minute when they were in a grocery store to buy more. Maybe it was the little shelf talkers in the cookie or cereal section. I don't know. Most likely it was a combination of all of those things.
Outdoor also played a prominent role.
If there's not enough milk in the refrigerator, then our efforts to get people to consume it clearly can't be fully successful. Outdoor is there to remind people on the way home, excuse me, to buy more milk. In a sense, if you don't buy it now, you're going to have to buy it at 11 o'clock tonight. So wouldn't it be easier to just pull off and get your milk on the way home? Once it's in the fridge, then the television helps pull it off the shelf and into people's glasses or bowls, as the case might be. So outdoor is purchase, television is consumption.
Co-op was another critical component of the Got Milk campaign.
We reached out to all of the major food companies in the United States and had a very simple proposition. We have $22 million to spend in the state of California, and we'd like to sell more of your product. Would you like to work with us?
Jeff went to General Mills. We said, Jeff, do you think we could use a real cereal box? I said, I don't know, let's try it. So we went to General Mills and read them the scripts, and they said, oh, we'd love to be in those commercials. Those are great commercials. So we got to use, you know, Cheerios and Wheaties boxes in all the commercials. But while he was there, he said to them, maybe there's some way we could do some stuff together, you know, because milk and cereal go together so well. Why don't we co-op some outdoor together?
And we both won. We both won. They sold more cereal, we sold more milk.
Eventually, we did something with the Trix Rabbit, of course, on TV, and that was a real coup. And then suddenly, like, we began to think all the characters of advertising are really open for us to use if we think this way. It was a pretty interesting mechanism, and so we started to use Snap, Crackle, and Pop, you know, and we did something with the Girl Scouts.
The promotion program just opened up all sorts of doors. General Mills, Quaker, Kellogg's, Keebler's, Nabisco, Pillsbury, Entenmann's, all sorts of companies.
Got Milk was obviously a creative success, but did it sell more milk?
We do a tracking study, a usage tracking study, have done it from before the campaign started all the way through to today. 7 percentage points more people say they're having milk yesterday, same number of times. So that's a pretty hard number and a pretty good number for us. And the ounces of milk they've consumed actually is edged up a little bit.
In the process, an amazing thing happened. Got Milk, a slogan for a commodity, became a brand.
In September of '95, excuse me, we licensed the Got Milk campaign nationally to the dairy groups. So all of a sudden now it was national. It wasn't just California. Got Milk was running nationally. And when that happened, it became so obvious that we had a brand in many ways.
We were quite assumptive and said, you know, we're going to be a brand, and we're going to be a brand very quickly. And did a lot of things beyond advertising to make that happen. In the deals that Jeff did with other companies for joint promotions, you know, with people like Nabisco and General Mills, Pillsbury and so on. In the very early licensing of the Got Milk line for clothing.
The best testimony is we've had kids here in California ask that we know because we did groups and we found out, ask their mom if they could have got milk, a glass of got milk. So I guess it's become a brand.
As you might expect, nobody involved with the Got Milk campaign is taking its success for granted.
That mechanism, the guy with his mouth full of something, saying mook, mook, you know, became kind of tired. People predicted it. Even though, you know, they haven't stopped liking it yet, you could see that there was a day coming when it was going to get a little more predictable, a little harder to surprise people. And so we wanted to put a little bit of a different, come at it from a little different angle to kind of refresh that mechanism a little bit.
So what we did was, in the words of one consumer, we upped the deprivation ante, okay? Because before it had been individuals, one person, maybe two people, deprived of milk. We created an entire town that just doesn't work because there's no milk.
It's not to change the campaign. It's still based on that same core idea that it's a very bad thing to be without milk.
It's a town called Drysville, and it's the town without milk.
And we're never really clear about why it has no milk, whether it's been outlawed or, you know, whether there's something's gone wrong.
And it had a little bit of a Twin Peaks kind of feel to it. There was a place that was damned, you know, something was wrong, and the people couldn't do anything about it.
For the Got Milk team, creating a place where something is very wrong is just part of the process of doing things very right.
You have to be doing something now. You have to be producing results and visible things out there right now. And I think that keeps us all focused.
And I never, ever, ever lose track of who I'm paid for and what I'm doing here. I'm here to sell more milk.
But in the end, if our advertising doesn't help move a client's business forward, we're all wasting our time.